Good luck.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lat Mackey, and this is Sequence Break, a podcast that features conversations with speedrunners, developers, content creators, and everything in between. This is episode 79, and I kid you not, it's an episode I think I've been trying to do for like a year now. And we're going to be talking all about Jedi Fallen Order with the current any percent and no PBC world record holder, MrBenuto, also known as Benji. Benji, thanks so much for being here. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing just fine. And don't forget to mention your other guest is also world record holder for the PS5.
Hell
category.
yes, so true. and you mentioned, I'm glad we got zmoneytrain to join us, because also a person who's been a glitch hunter and finding new things out about the game. zmoneytrain, thank you so much for joining as well, man. How you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm doing pretty good. How you guys doing?
Doing great. And I think first of all, there's two reasons I really want to do this game. One is because it was one of the most fun casual playthroughs I've had. And don't judge me, but I literally just played this game like a year ago. I've only played it within the last year, mostly because I've bought way too many games on Steam. And so when this goes on, the next one goes on sale, that's what I usually pick them up. So I'm a little cheap, but that's fine. But then secondly,
that's smart. That's just smart.
Had I known the game was this good, I would have wanted to get it on when it came out, you know? Then also, the speedrunning community around this game, the speedrunning itself, and to see all the literally thousands of hours you all have put into this game for a small dedicated group of people, I think has been really kind of fascinating and interesting to watch as well. So hope we get a chance to chat it all. I'm going to start with like when you first played through the game or when you first discovered it, like what got you to play it in the first place. And Benji, I'll start with you. What made you play the game in the first place? How'd you find it?
Yeah, well, I've always been a Star Wars fan. You know, as a kid, I've always had like Lego Star Wars and stuff like that. And so obviously I was excited for the game when they revealed it. But I didn't actually play it right on release because at the time I was stuck in Witcher 3. So I was pouring a ton of hours into that game. So I got around to playing it, I think around March of 2020. So like roughly like 4 or 5 months after it came out. Managed to pretty much avoid all spoilers for it, even the one at the very end, which is kind of insane. I don't know how I did that, but that was cool. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I even did check out the speedrun right after I finished my casual playthrough, which I pretty much do for all games I play, just because I'm interested. Like I rarely do check out speedruns for games that I haven't played myself, but whenever I do, I like immediately look at the speedrun after. And yeah, back when I first checked out the speedrun, it was way different than it is now. But yeah, so that's how I kind of got into the game and into the speedrun.
I'm glad you mentioned it because I almost forgot to say something about it. And that is, we're probably going to get into spoiler territories, just to let you know. Yeah. Thankfully, a lot of the speedrun has, you avoid a lot of the story points in the game.
That's very true. Yeah, that's very true.
But just to let you know, we are going to talk as if you've all played. The game's been out for 3 years now. I think it's okay. I think we're in fair territory. But
yeah.
Z-Money, how about what's your story? How'd you end up finding the game?
I've also been a big Star Wars fan, and I played the game on launch when it came out. And I also looked at the speedrun right after I finished it, like Benji, but at the time it was like the run was like 3.5 hours or so or something like that. And I'm more of a short speedrunner. I like the hour or hour and a half sort of marks if I can. And so then I kind of just didn't touch it until I saw the GDQ run that P-Nash did in 2021. That's when I picked it back up again to mess around with it.
Yeah, it's also a good point. It was kind of Jedi Fallen Order was my very first speed game ever. Like it's the first game I ever speedran. And at the time, like Z-Money said, when I first looked up the run, it was like 3.5 hours or something, and I wasn't actually like really considering it. And it was only until later, also around that GDQ time, when I was actually like messing around with some strats myself, and I was like, hey, this is actually kind of fun and I can actually do this. Maybe I should consider it. And yeah, so that was also the same experience for me, where I checked it out first and then kind of didn't for like over half a year, and then kind of got back into it. Also for a different reason. I don't know if I want to spoil that just yet, but something happened in mid-2020 that kind of changed the speedrun quite a bit. So yeah.
I appreciate
what also got me back in.
Foreshadowing it, because we're definitely going to get there.
Yeah, for sure.
I do want to give a quick shout out to P Nash's run from GDQ. It helped me do a lot of research for this run. I'll just be honest, like the commentary is really great. And if this is something that you're interested in, definitely a great place to start. I think if you're interested in this game at all.
Yeah, that was an amazing run that he did. That was just so cool.
Well, it highlights kind of my first question. And so, MrBenuto or Benji, I'll start with you. And that is like, what are some of like the basic mechanics? I just want to share my quick experience with it. Playing through it casually, I really actually enjoyed the way that the game adds on different skills through the force and the force attacks and things like that make the game at some point feel really good. There is some clunkiness a little bit to some of the jumping and some of the other things, but I actually really thought the mechanics felt really good in the fingers, especially as you develop more skills and all those kind of things. So I guess from your point of view, what are some of the basic mechanics and help you actually learn the game at a higher level?
Well, that's the thing. If you look at the any percent speedrun of this game, it has not a lot to do with how you play it casually. Like combat wise, it is very much like we only kill like a handful of things. We rarely engage with any of the skills, and over the course of the entire game, we buy three skills, where one of them is just the improved version of a different skill. So yeah, for the any percent at least, it is like very not how it is in a casual playthrough. So I don't think that necessarily translates very well. However, for some of the other categories, like especially Jedi Grandmaster All Bosses, which is also a category we have, it's more important there because, well, the goal of that category is to kill all of the bosses in the game, which is like, I don't know exactly how many, but yeah, that's the goal, and always being on the hardest difficulty. So obviously in that category, you buy a lot more skills because they make the fights a lot easier and faster, of course. So that category maybe interfaces with that a little more. Whereas I in any percent mostly focus on the dash. Like there's this dash ability that we use for movement tech, and that's like the most important thing. And the jankiness you mentioned is actually kind of funny because that's like a lot of what enables the things we do in the speedrun, like the fact that the game is kind of, not very polished in some aspects, like traversal wise or whatever is actually really, really helpful to us. So yeah, I think that's kind of an interesting point there.
When I see modern games such like this, I'm always curious about how to approach. So I'm very much an old school 8 and 16-bit speedrunner, 2D stuff, and I'm always curious, how do we go about trying to find some of the best ways to play through the game, and then also ways to break it, finding glitches and things to exploit and things like that. Is there anything are there any games that you played that may have given you some skills for this, or is this game kind of its own unique way of playing through it?
I don't know. Like I said, it was the very first game I ever speedrun, so I don't think I couldn't translate anything from other games I had speedrun or anything. It's just kind of I like doing the more like optimizing stuff and movement, for example. I really enjoyed that. So I love it when speedruns of games have like an unintended movement tech, so to speak, like we have here, like a chain dash that you can use to go above the intended sprinting, for example. That's what I really like. So that's also what kind of drew me to this, because I was like, hey, this is really cool to also have stuff to do in between, like skips, for example. You always have like something to focus on, like the chain dashing that I mentioned. Whereas you wouldn't just run in between. That would be kind of boring.
Totally. It'd feel like the normal game. Zbuddy, had you done any speedrunning before taking on JFO?
I'd always been interested in speedrunning. Like I'd always watched a lot of the GDQ marathon stuff, but I didn't really start getting into speedrunning until the year before I started Fallen Order. So I started with Last of Us 2 of all games, and decided to do glitch hunting for that as well. And then once I saw the GDQ run of PNash, that's when I decided to switch over to Fallen Order.
I think this is probably then a good a time as any to kind of describe, I guess, some of the categories and the console differences versus the PC and stuff like that. So let's first off, what are the main categories for the game, and what are the rules, or what are some of the differences between the main categories? And I guess I'll start with you, Benji.
Yeah, well, the most popular one by far has to be any percent. It kind of, well, the goal of the game, like in any percent, mostly is just to finish the game as fast as you can. But it was always kind of interesting with the with JFO in particular because there is something called pause buffer clipping in the game, like PBCing, where it was discovered that like early on that if you spammed like pause in the game, it would lag enough so that you could like clip through certain doors and walls, and that kind of first sparked a bit of a discussion in the community because it was like kind of a hardware dependent thing, so it didn't work for everyone, and then that kind of resulted in that no PBC category that still exists today because of how strange this mechanic sort of works. The way we do it now is actually by pressing F11 on PC, which like formats the window size of the game, and that induces so much lag, like consistent lag, that it actually works across like all hardware that we tested it on, and so that's why there was this split in the first place for any percent. But yeah, we have now unrestricted and no PBC due to the nature how the pause buffer clipping worked in the first place. Then for other categories, we had no fly for a while, which yeah, it banned the most transformative glitch that was found because people wanted kind of the old route back. But that actually is obsolete now because the current fastest route is no fly. So we'll get into that later, maybe again. But yeah, so that was a category for a while. And then we have, like I mentioned before, the JGM all bosses, which is hardest difficulty, beating all bosses in the game, which is also really fun because it showcases some of the combat which we don't really in any percent. And yeah, and then the last main one is 100%. Goal is see the 100% on the save file at the very end, which includes getting all the chests, all the secrets. Not all of the exploration, like you don't have to have 100% on all the exploration. We don't know exactly how it works, but if you have 89 on some, it's still fine. So yeah, these are like the main categories that we have and the sort of broad differences between them. And then, like I said, of course, I think ZMoney can speak more about this. It's the whole PS5 and console thing. That's like a whole different beast.
So tell us what's the differences there, ZMoney?
Well, I mean, it kind of evolved over time because they patched the flying glitch for console. But then I was able to figure out a way to still do it, just a lot more difficult. And then when the next gen consoles came out, they had some like PS5 updates and Xbox Series X updates. But for some reason, it's only possible on PS5. This glitch that mutes the game and speeds up cutscenes at 10x speed at least, basically. And that's basically why the PS5 is the fastest category for any percent.
So I am so sorry I didn't get a chance to watch your run for prepping for this episode. What the hell do you do to speed up? Because that's there's a lot of cutscenes in the game, unfortunately.
Oh yeah,
which great as a casual experience. It makes the game really great. But so how are you able to move through 10x on PS5?
There was a Reddit post on the game for someone that came across it somehow, and they didn't know how they did it, but I was able to kind of like reverse engineer it, like, and figure out something to do with rest mode on the console. But then I figured out, like, oh, when you put the console in rest mode, that's just suspending the application anyway. So then I was able to figure out opening the Spotify app or some other app that would suspend a game. When you go back into the game, that's how you activated the glitch. And that's just, I don't know. It's weird
works.
for sure.
Yeah.
It works.
Wow, that's fascinating. And okay, and now does it 10x all of the cutscenes or just specific ones?
Um, all like the in-game like movie cutscenes, like
Gotcha.
rendered cutscenes, basically.
I got you. The
Some of
cinematics.
like ending, like the in-game scripted movement stuff, that's all normal speed, but the actual cutscenes are all sped up. And they seem to vary a little bit on the speed, but for the most part, it's like 10x across the board.
So tell us a little bit then about the flying mechanic, because how does it work on PC, or what, the PC categories, and how does it differ then on PS5? Because you said you're able to kind of do it in a different way.
There's like a bunch of weird things you can do with stacking animations. One of the glitches we use is an airwalk glitch, and it just involves you holding a block with your lightsaber and stacking other animations like force slow and interacting with like a meditation spot or a chest. But for flying, basically, once you unlock Jedi flip for your double jump, you can stack animations to reset your Jedi flip. So spamming force slow and jump at a certain rhythm can cause it to reset, and just you're basically able to fly across the map. But they were able to patch that for console for some reason. I don't know why I guess I just never updated PC version hardly again, so that stayed the same. But console had to we had found a way around it with holding block similar to air walks, but you just have to mash jump a bunch more. It's just a really it wears your wrists out after a while for sure, but it was still possible. And for a while when I was still on PS4, I was able to do a couple runs with that.
I always find this stuff fascinating. And so then, is it one of those things where are you keeping the controller like on your lap or on a desk as you're mashing, or are you still able to hold the controller like you might normally do?
I mean, I have pretty big hands, so I'm still able to hold the controller. I'm not like Tetris like grip,
You're right.
weird like rolling mechanics or anything like that. But it definitely does wear my wrists out after a while after doing a couple runs of it.
My casual playthrough, I played exclusively with controller, even on PC, and I found that there were times where I was used to claw grip, because you do that in certain speedruns for retro games, and that there were times where that actually felt a little bit better. Benji, when you run, I noticed there is some mouse movement that you're gonna have to do when you're going into the menus and changing some of the frame rates and stuff like that. Are you still playing on controller normally, or are you using a mouse and keyboard the whole time?
Actually, kind of unlucky because of my current PB. I don't have an input viewer, but I do play exclusively with keyboard and mouse. So that's how I. Well, it's not how I played through the game casually. Casually, I did play it with a controller. However, whenever, for example, I also speedrun Sekiro for a bit, and I played that game also with a controller casually. But then the speedrun I did on mouse and keyboard again, because I always just feel like I need that precision. Precision. Is that the word? Jesus. I think
so.
maybe,
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Oh, that sounded weird for some reason. But yeah, I always feel like I need that, and I have more control over what I want to do with mouse and keyboard. So I play the game exclusively with mouse and keyboard, and it works great for me. There's like at the time there was like about a 50-50 split between the runners using controller versus mouse and keyboard. There's some downsides and advantages to both control methods, but yeah, there's for example like one certain strat or trick that we do, or glitch, that is called a drop jump, which also ZMoney found that one, like so many other things, which on PC only seems to work on mouse and keyboard or on PlayStation controllers. But we have not gotten it to work on any Xbox controller. It's really strange. It involves basically just pressing the drop, like when hanging on a ledge, you press the jump button and the drop button basically at the same time, and that results in Cal doing kind of a weird jump up the ledge, which lets us like get into some unintended geometry and locations out of bounds, or lets us skip like a cutscene like 30 seconds in. into the speedrun, there's like a cutscene that would normally trigger, but we skip it that way. And so yeah, some runners, for example, just do the controller movement, then switch to mouse and keyboard for the quick drop jump, and then go back to controller. Whereas some runners that are on mouse and keyboard most of the time switch to controller for like a balance beam section, because it is easier to like get across it faster because you have more granular movement with the analog stick. So yeah, there's like I said, there was like about a 50-50 split, but I exclusively played on mouse and keyboard, and do believe it's the superior and better way of doing the speedrun. Yeah.
That actually leads to another question, because I noticed this during your run as well, your most recent PB, that the camera control looked slightly different to me, but it may just have been the way that you were playing the game. I know in a game like Mario 64, how well you control the camera and what you do with it can really impact your time significantly, especially on how fast you're moving and how, you know, quickly things load up and stuff. Is the camera control as important in a game like this? Like, are you trying to look for specific places to place? I can imagine for some of the glitches through walls and things, but how important is that to it?
Well, that's kind of what I love about running with mouse and keyboard, is because the movement that I talked about before, like the chain dashing on mouse and keyboard, it's literally just looking into the direction you want to go. Whereas I always felt on control, you have to control both. Like you have to control both the camera and your movement separately, and that always felt very imprecise to me. So that's what I really love about having those like strict camera angles. Always like I'm going in this direction. So that's kind of how I use the camera. And that's why I also like playing on mouse and keyboard.
Absolutely.
But for like loading in certain things, it's the camera itself can't really load stuff in. It's mostly just cal that goes through loading triggers and stuff like that. Except for like a couple things where we actually use the photo mode to trigger a certain loading trigger, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, other than that, there's not too much importance on camera movement, except for, like you said, certain glitches like launching, for example, that is pretty camera dependent. So yeah.
Gosh, I don't know. I don't know if I want to ask. Let's do this first, because I'm really curious about your process, ZMoney. How have you gone about finding the glitches that you've found, or some of the clips or things that you've done? Let's start with there first before we get to some of the bigger ones actually in the any percent run. So, what is your process? How the hell do you do this?
I guess I'm more brute force since I'm mostly on console, so I just try different things, or look up. Some of the glitches were found like way back in the beginning when the game came out by other glitch hunters, and some stuff that just seemed basically useless. You know, like the airwalk seemed pretty useless, and we didn't really have any way to implement it into the run too much until we rerouted the Dathomir planet, and that helped us, you know, find a way to skip a lot of that level and other planets. But yeah, basically just, I'd say, brute force. I don't have a whole lot of things to test or debug or anything like that. So I just, you know, end up trying new things or trying to think outside the box of what we could use certain glitches for to get around certain, you know, sequences or cutscenes or whatever.
Yeah, that's also, I just want to say it's incredible what this man has found, and like the glitch hunting he's done on a console, which is like so limiting, and you have so few options. It's crazy to me, especially when he still was figuring out stuff with like the old way of flying around, which is like so much harder than on PC. And it always amazed me how much he was able to, how he could endure glitch hunting on a console. It's crazy to me, and it's wild because like so much of the current route is stuff he found, and he transformed the whole route like a couple months ago. Like he found the thing he just mentioned, the Dathomir stuff with an airwalk, which we previously didn't really think was anything that was useful, and now we skip an entire planet, like another entire planet. So it's wild to me, and I have the utmost respect for what he did. It's kind of annoying though, because whenever he posts some video of stuff he finds, I was like, okay, does this work on PC? Is this actually something I could use? So you always have to do some testing of yourself to be like, okay, maybe I can find a different way to do this exact thing, or maybe it just works straight up. Like for example, when the cutscene speed up thing was first found, like we all scrambled to
Replicate it.
yeah, replicate it on PC, but we couldn't find a way, and it was so frustrating. But yeah, that's always fun. Whenever you look in the Discord and you see a new Z Money video, and you know, oh no, what has he found now?
Yeah,
But I love it though. It's great.
I definitely can't take all the credit because there's so much that the community did, like helping out with Pnash, especially finding all these loading triggers, and he theorized the slide skip thing for Kashyyyk that seemed to be possible for so long, and then we ended up I spent like a whole day just trying to wrap my head around if this could be possible, and we ended up using an airwalk for that to make it work, and eventually we just routed out Kashyyyk, so it's kind of out of there. But that was definitely the starting point of figuring out how these glitches work and how we can apply it to other areas of the game.
So it brings up an interesting point, and one of the things that came up during Pnash's run, and I this is something that I wasn't quite aware of, but I'm glad to hear this community effort that you all put into it. It seems like every trick or every route, well, we spent 100 hours testing that, we spent hundreds of hours testing this. Like, it seems like there's a lot to go on. Let's just start with something. When you find a new glitch to exploit, how does that relate back to route? Like, I mean, you have to test all these things out, and I know there's only a limited amount of planets in the game, but I'm curious, like, once you find a new way to break the game, what's the next step? Do you try implementing it in the current route? Do you try new routes with it? Do you try chaining new strats? Like, is there a process, or is it just kind of keep trying things?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of why we love our little Discord server. Is when one of us figures something out, we'll post it and just start communicating on, where else could we use this. Like with the airwalk, we were trying to figure out, oh, it seems you get a checkpoint when you start certain cutscenes, so if we start an airwalk, trigger the cutscene, and then are able to back out and then reload, then we can skip said cutscene that was 3.5 minutes or however long it was. So we end up like theorizing stuff for that, for like on Zepho, there's a ATST boss fight, and we ended up figuring out how to skip that cutscene with an airwalk, and that was pretty useful for like the no PBC route, where we would normally have to just clip into the back of the Mantis ship. So it was a way to avoid having to do that. But yeah, it's just communicating with each other and figuring out, methods that we could try to apply it to other planets and sequence break certain things.
Are all of the are all the triggers for cutscenes now known? Do you all know where those are? Or are you still discovering new triggers for cutscenes and loading points?
Loading triggers, I'm not 100% sure on, but I think cutscene wise, we know pretty much all the cutscenes that we can skip, and I'd say we're definitely at a point in the community where we've thought we've hit a wall several times now, but I think for sure this time, I think we hit the wall on how far down we can push the run.
Yeah, what you were asking before, how we like implement stuff we find and stuff. Like the most recent like big route change up that happened, it like illustrates that like pretty perfectly, because Z Money was actually doing some glitch hunting for the no flight category that I mentioned before, and he tried to skip, or like to do Ilum skip, like to skip the planet of Ilum, but without having to fly. And he posted a video of it, which involved like a lengthy setup and stuff. So he didn't really think it was gonna lead to much more than like, oh, this is possible. I don't know if this would ever be faster or whatever, but I figured this out. And then like a couple other runners, for like also runners that weren't necessarily that interested in no fly, were looking at this and going, okay, this could maybe lead to us completely having to like completely being able to get like skip the requirement of getting double jump, which would like eliminate all of Kashyyyk. And then we kind of started looking into that and being like, okay, could we actually finish the rest of the game without double jump? Could we do this? Could we do that? And then we modified some stuff that we used to do, and it was like amazing because it just like all came together. Like everyone was, oh, I found a slightly new, better route for this and better setup for this, and then it ultimately like the niche little glitch hunting that he did for a category that pretty much no one was really running that actively ended up transforming the route for the normal any percent category, and it was just that was like really amazing. And like you said, it really seems like we kind of hit a wall right now because we know what we need to trigger certain things to finish the game, and we've kind of you know do it as fast as we can. Now we do the least amount of things to get to those points, and it really seems like we kind of broke the game as much as we can now. Like never say never, of course, but like
All right.
I feel like this was the most like the last big huge change to the route. I feel that happened like just a couple months ago.
Yeah.
So what gave you the idea to try something out like this, Z? What exactly is did you, maybe I might have missed it, but how, can you explain the glitch a little bit? And then, because I think I understand what you're saying, but how did you discover it, I guess? What exactly is it?
So I'll say one of our community members, I see him in the chat now, he said, it's Binks. He made actually a really great video on the history of the speedrun recently, and it summarizes basically up till the current PS5 record, how much it's changed over time. So that's a great way to
Yeah.
talk about or see how it's changed. But basically we used to have to go, the only reason we went to Kashyyyk was to get Jedi Flip to be able to fly. Then we basically just fly right back to the Mantis and then continue on to Dathomir. But I just wanted to play around with Dathomir for no fly. There was like one rope swing on Kashyyyk that we couldn't reach without flying, but I decided, well, I'm just going to mess around with Dathomir a bit, and I just was playing around with the loading triggers, and I would PBC into the temple and then back out, and then I was like, oh, the Order 66 level is spawned below the map here, even though I didn't like activate where it would normally throw you in it or teleport you to it. So I was basically able to figure out it loads even when you don't activate the door or the meditation spot. And then I was trying to figure out a way, okay, I know where the loading trigger for the last part of Order 66 is, but I need to figure out a way to hit that loading trigger so we can get there.
Yeah.
And without flying, you have to find a way to get there. So just messing around with like the photo mode and just trying to figure out where collision was and where I could get higher ground to be able to try to just literally just jump off a ledge to try to hit a loading trigger. And that's what inevitably ended up happening is going back to the starting area where the landing pad is, doing a PBC out of bounds, and then just doing a falling dash off a ledge to hit a loading trigger. And then that's where we started going back to applying the air walk. So to skip, normally when, I don't know if you're familiar with how the Dathomir part works, but after Order 66, you fight your master, and then it transports you back to the Dathomir temple, and your lightsaber is broken, and then you have to travel to Ilum to get it repaired and all that. So trying to get a way around that cutscene and around that last confrontation area is what allows you to skip Ilum. So if you do an airwalk on the cutscene trigger, it'll cause you to airwalk back to the last meditation spot you're at, and that will allow you to back out of the cutscene and basically load back in and go back to the temple, and then you can proceed on the rest of the Dathomir without having to repair your lightsaber or having to fly or anything like that. So
That's
that was
so
really
wild. Yeah.
that was really jumbled way of saying it, but yeah.
I gotta imagine. I mean, because you've played the game now long enough, when you discover like something like that, is this like holy shit? Like this is gonna change this thing up big time, or were you not quite sure until you shared with everyone? It sounds like something like this you might know kind of right away.
I mean, when I was first figuring this out, I was like, okay, this took me like so long to find a strat, and like Benji was saying, like when I first posted, it was a very rough draft of, okay, so hey guys, this is actually possible to skip Ilum without flying. But this is just the VOD clip of 45 minutes of me trying to do a TLJ like target lock jump on collision to try to get to the area I needed to be in. But yeah, I didn't really want to post it until I figured out the rest of it, because I didn't realize how some of the older routes like actually. We kind of revived parts of the oldest versions of the route, because I didn't even know certain things about the last planet on Nur, with it being underwater and all that. But when I figured out like, oh, we can actually make our way to the end of the Nur area, I didn't want to post my Dathomir strat until I knew we could actually finish the game basically without needing double jump. And once I figured that, I was like, oh, okay, I'll post this and see if people think it's viable for no fly or any percent even.
Benji, when you saw this, did you automatically, or did you have any thoughts like right away that this is going to be something that changes it?
Yeah, this was like the first thing I thought when I saw this. I was like, because actually the video that zmoney posted of him doing it, he still had double jump, so he was still using double jump like for doing the strat, right? So he had already gone to Kashyyyk and went back. So what I was first thinking, like, because it didn't look like he necessarily needed the double jump for what he did, but I wasn't sure. So there was like, I was immediately like booting up the game and going like, okay, can I recreate this? But like specifically looking out to not do any double jumps ever, like as like theory crafting if we could completely skip it. And then it was actually really fun because we were like in a call, a couple of runners, we were just going through the route, trying stuff, and then like hitting a small roadblock and like, oh damn, did anyone ever find a way for this? Like, and like zmoney said, we were going back to old videos, looking at old strats that we did, because like I said, it's basically no fly now, so how the game was before that May 1st patch. And so we revived a lot of that old tech, and it was really fun to like go through it all and like seeing that it was actually possible to do it without double jump. And then it ultimately, I did like some rough, like I timed it out very roughly if all this setup and all this time loss you have in the later splits would actually result in a faster time, because we were going to skip all of Kashyyyk. And it actually worked, and now the route is like around 9-ish minutes faster than the old one. And yeah, that was just like, I think that was one of my favorite experiences for my entire speedrunning career in this community, because I don't know, this was just like, it was so fun to have this, and because it's like such a substantial change, because it cuts out yet another planet. Because Kashyyyk always felt so unnecessary, because like zmoney said, we go in, get the Jedi flip, and then we go out, and it was always like, this was not a stain, but it was like, this is unnecessary. This is not really one of those core things that we need. Yeah. So finally having a way to skip that, and it actually ends up being faster, was just amazing. And yeah, I just love that.
I think it's also interesting too, like after you've been running a game for a couple of years, like and you haven't had a discovery in a while, something that breaks the game's got to feel pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah, we like I said, zmoney was like, he was discovering a ton of stuff, but most of it was like medium to small stuff that was basically like, oh, this is like a 10 to 20 second time save or whatever, right? Like some small stuff on Braca mostly, really.
Yeah.
So it was like really amazing to me to have like this substantial of a route change like this late into the game, so to speak. I mean, it's not late, obviously, but you know, we kind of did all we can, we thought, and then this comes along, and we're like, oh my god, this is so good now. This is like this feels like we kind of, you know, went to the smallest version of the route that it can be, like the shortest version of it, the least amount of things, almost like a lowest percent, but you know, not really. But yeah, it's basically just the essentials we really need, and that's it. And yeah, I just thought that was amazing.
Z-Money, you mentioned something that I'd like to ask about, and maybe I don't know the answer to this one. That you don't use any tools; you're just trying to brute force, you're trying to break things, you know, in game and stuff like that. Are there any tools, or have people try? Because you know, in our 8 and 16-bit world, we've got frame by frame advance with tool assisted speedruns and all that kind of stuff. Does anything like that exist for JFO?
Well, I mean, on PC, there's like they use like a trainer program, so they can like super jump and get around invisible walls and stuff to test things that way. But other than that, they're like, we've reached out to the modding community and stuff, and they haven't been able to figure out a cutscene skip or anything like that. I don't know if you have any input on that, Benji, but
yeah, like one thing that's also like a couple things that Z-Money discovered on Braca, for example, was basically him just being out of bounds where you can't see anything and just looking for a collision and trying to navigate basically completely blind, and like just messing around with the photo mode, bumping into stuff. Is this solid? Is this not? And I don't know how much time he spent there, and that was also just crazy, because we never had anything like a mesh drawer or something like where we could see the collision, which would have been very helpful for that. But yeah, he basically just brute forced that, and it's crazy to have that kind of stuff. But yeah, basically what we do, like the advantages we have on PC, like glitch hunting wise over console, is of course we have so many save files. Panache made like, he has so many different save files that he made and that we can all use to practice stuff and to like figure stuff out and to go basically into any point of the game with every single combination of skills and stuff that we want, due to like a quick save mod that was made by the modding community. That was very helpful for us to practice certain stuff. But yeah, basically that's kind of the advantages that we have on PC, and that's why I was always so amazed that he did all this stuff on console, where it's very limited what you really have access to.
There one of the things I remembered in my casual playthrough was there's this customization you can do with your lightsaber, color wise, the actual look and feel. And I was wondering if any of those cosmetic customizations have any sort of impact at all on the run. I can't imagine they do, but I was just curious if they do.
No, they really don't. But there's actually a funny story kind of about that, because Z-Money mentioned earlier there used to be a thing on Kushi called slide skip, where we would airwalk from a chest onto water, which would then put us back down to the chest, and we could just barely swim underneath a certain branch without the underwater, like the rebreather. So that was like a huge discovery at the time. And for example, some runners eventually started doing like New Game Plus runs, which is basically just cosmetics. Like nothing changed about the game, but you have all the cosmetics. And then once we got to that point, like the runner realized that like, oh damn, this chest is now open, and he can't actually do the airwalk because the game just opens all the chests for you.
Yeah.
And so basically the run was dead in the water from that point on. But that was like really funny, and it's like. Yeah, other than that customization, I'm sure you saw it in Panache's GDQ run. The poncho, that's like a nice touch that you can do, the custom poncho. But yeah, other than that, the whole customization stuff doesn't really have a big impact on the game. The only thing you really did back in the day was you could choose your Kyber crystal color still on Ilum, but that was as soon as Fly came into the mix, we never had to do that again. So Yeah, basically it's just vanilla. But what we actually do, which I think is not very common for speedrun communities, but I don't know, we allow cosmetic mods, for example, on PC. You can change your lightsaber color if you want. You can play as Darth Maul if you want. It's all pretty fun in that regard. But yeah, other than that, it doesn't really impact the speedrun at all.
I guess one of the things I'm trying to remember, like the climate when this first came out, and there was these comparisons to Metroid Prime, there was comparisons to Dark Souls or Soulsborne games, and so I don't know if that scared me off from it at first, like, oh, this is going to be a challenging game or whatnot. But the thing I do remember is how much fun I actually had playing with the combat. I'd like to talk a little bit about, like, if somebody wanted to consider speedrunning this game and how they could go about doing it, because one of the things I've noticed from watching all of your runs that everyone's been doing is, like, it's really movement heavy, and it makes it super interesting for those of us that are into movement. And a lot of folks like myself, 2D folks, you know, from 8 and 16-bit generation, like, that's what we love about these games. It's not quite, you know, I'm not the best at Dark Souls, but, like, I really enjoy platforming and those kind of things. And I feel like this game actually really gives you that opportunity to do so. So I guess tell us a little bit about, you know, if you were considering this game, is that the feel that this run goes through now? Is it something different? What might be the things that attract a new runner to this game?
Well, for me, it's funny, really. We have some runners, for example, that think any percent is like, they really don't like the category because it has so little to do with the core game and how it is casually.
Yes.
But I don't know. It was what attracted me. I don't know. I saw some basic skips, like, for example, doing a target lock jump on Braca to skip, like, the tutorial section, and that was, like, just very interesting to me. And I was actually going in game and being like, I'm gonna try this. Maybe I can get this to work. And then when it did, I was like so excited. So I guess I can't really speak on that aspect for me, because for me it really was just, like, very much the speedrun of the game that got me into it, less so how the speedrun uses, like, core gameplay. I don't know. But like I said, if that's more your thing, then either considering the all bosses category, where it's, like, actually they're just, like, combat and stuff in between all the glitchy fun stuff. But there's also a relatively active challenge run community for this game. Like, it's also quite small, but there's people there as well that do, like no hit runs, no damage runs, and then all that kind of stuff. No skill tree and all that stuff. So if you want more from the game in that aspect, maybe the challenge run side of it is more your thing. But yeah, like I said, for me, it was really just, like, the glitches actually working when I tried them that made me so excited to run this game.
Is that something similar for you, zmoney? Is that the thing that you think attracted to you, or just it was a fun game to break? I'm curious.
Yeah, I guess speed run wise, I like typically, like, the most broken versions of speed runs where how much could we possibly skip of this game to hit the credits or get to the very end? And it's like that's something that I usually like seeing. But yeah, just after seeing the Pnash run, I just wanted to do more and, like, try it out myself on the console and see, can I fly on PS4? Can I do this YOLO launch thing where I launch across the Zepho planet and hit a loading trigger, and just all the fun glitches that are fun to do, and some of them are challenging and hard to get. But yeah, I do like more movement type, not like crazy movement speed, like speed runs where that's, like, the main focus is movement, but where you're able to do something like animation cancel to chain dash across areas, and the really fun glitches is what I usually am attracted to.
Benji, you mentioned that for now, you kind of feel like the things that you're doing in any percent right now are kind of what it's going to be for a bit. Is there any room in 100% or no PBC if people still want to run? Is there any room for discovery there, or things that could possibly bring the times down?
For no PBC, it would really just be implementing things from the PBC, the unrestricted category, that like porting them over to that
Mhm.
category and then implementing them into a run. Because like I said, that run is pretty old, and like a lot of new stuff that we discovered over the last year or so hasn't really been implemented in that at all. However, that being said, there was, I don't know if people are still messing around with that a bit, but the new route that we found with that skips all of Kashyyyk, that to our knowledge right now only works by using PBCs. So that would kind of be an interesting thing, maybe, to figure out a way to get all that stuff working without the use of PBCs. But yeah, other than that, for 100%, for example, I think there's, of course, you have a more clear goal, and the fact that you have to, like I said, not all of the exploration, but a lot of it kind of limits you in what you can skip, of course, because you have to go through a lot of the game, and sometimes you have to go out of your way even to get some exploration trigger. And so I think it's more limited in that way. But for example, we found a chest cancel actually that works on certain chests where BD isn't on your shoulder, and then you can kind of use the healing animation to skip the chest opening animation, which can be implemented for a couple chests. We've not found one that works on every single chest, but there's certainly more, I think, still that it would work on. And plus, simply just because of how long that run is and how much you have to do, there's probably always going to be something. But like I said, it's less so that there's going to be this big breakthrough, because like I said, the goal is the 100% at the end of the save file, and you kind of need to, do all the things required for that. So there's less there. But yeah, for the current any percent route still, maybe to touch on that, there's actually like one boss fight now in that route as well, which previously there was like no boss fights at all in the route. And I actually had a lot of fun optimizing that fight for the any percent category, because there's like certain tech there as well. For example, in the second phase, there's usually like a quick time event that happens sometimes, and we found out that if you are not targeted to the boss and the quick time event happens, you can just jump out of it. It's really strange. You just jump out of the quick time event and can hit the boss while he's still in his quick time event pose, which is really interesting. And that way I figured out a way how to do both phases of the fight, like basically with only one real posture break, which is just like super fun for me. And I guess this would kind of be this is an interesting point right now, because this is exactly what's happening in my run currently on screen.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, there's a boss fight.
And I think I pull it off decently well in this in that run. But yeah, I had a lot of fun optimizing it for that. And it's also cool because the discoveries I made while I was trying to optimize for any percent actually helped like an all bosses runner to also optimize the fight on the Jedi Grandmaster difficulty. And that was really cool, because we had some nice back and forth there as well. Like, oh, you could try this, maybe does this work on Jedi Grandmaster as well? So yeah, that's also like, that was actually one time where maybe that's also like, this was one of the time where I was actually like kind of interfacing with the core mechanics of the game, but like also in like this weird glitchy way. So yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that as well. And you can, like I said, see it on screen now, I think.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
Z-Money, is there any place or thing that you still think you might be able to try, or some areas that you are on the future, or is there any recent discoveries or anything like that? Minus the big one.
Not at the moment. I mean, I don't have any thoughts on anywhere we can improve things, and things that I have thought of, we've tested, and it seems like we hit a wall and can't really get around it. But yeah, right now it seems like we're at a point where we're not gonna have any more discoveries. But maybe I'll wait and see if I hit something or something comes to mind in a
somebody
cold shower
finds something.
or
Yeah,
yeah. Especially it's also because we're kind of in like a hibernation phase right now, because like the sequel to this
Right.
game is rumored to come out like early next year, around March, I think, is like what some leaks have indicated, or whatever. So it's kind of like it's interesting because we now kind of feel like we're not done with this game, but like it's gotten to a point where we're like somewhat happy with it as a community, because like I said, we do the limited amount of things that we only really have to do to actually finish the game, and now we're kind of just like in like this waiting period and seeing and then like sinking our teeth in the next game. So like I said, it's not to say like this is completely done with, but it's kind of it would be kind of a nice or fitting, stage to leave it for now. Maybe come back to it after the sequel Survivor has hit that same point. Maybe, I don't know, or maybe some stuff that was going to be found in Survivor, which is going to be like the community around it is going to be way bigger when the game comes out, because it's new, and then a lot more people are going to be playing it and speedrunning it. So maybe we can like transfer stuff over from the sequel to the original, but it's all just speculation, and we're just all kind of are in this like it's this weird waiting phase where we're like, yeah, we just kind of want to have the second game maybe and not have to deal with cutscenes all the time anymore. Because this is also
Fingers
like the point.
crossed.
It's like it does wear on you, especially like the first planet, Braca. So much of it is just cutscenes. So yeah, and then when you have to reset to a somewhat difficult skip, it's just, I mean, all speedrunners know this, of course, but in our case, it's like really annoying because of those unskippable cutscenes. Which it's funny because on PS5 this has kind of been alleviated a little bit now, and but on PC we're still kind of stuck with what we have.
And I got to be honest, that's kind of surprising. So Respawn did confirm that they haven't, in this year, they confirmed they're working on the sequel. We think it's going to be next year. But for a game that has so many, modern parts of it, that seems like one of those things that's just one of those things that should be implemented nowadays, is that if you're playing, especially a game like this where they want you to travel back to the different worlds and stuff, especially even if you've beaten the game, that's it was really kind of surprising they didn't include some sort of cutscene skipping, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's also what ZMoney mentioned before, that modders have actually looked into ways to skip cutscenes, like to make a mod that skips them, but just the way that the game handles all its like its loading triggers and like all the elevators that we have in the like the crawl spaces, all that, of course, is that basically the old consoles like the PS4 and stuff have time to load all the areas. So I guess for this game, the way it was developed really was around these cutscenes, and that it wasn't as simple to like have a little switch, oh, you can skip this cutscene now. And so yeah, but that is really something that I don't think I will be able to accept if the sequel follows that in the same way and doesn't have skippable cutscenes. I mean, it's going to be current gen exclusive, so I hope there's going to be less of the elevator rides and whatnot, but we'll see. I don't know. But yeah, this, like that's what I also said before. That maybe why it's a somewhat unusual speedrun game, since unskippable cutscenes and doing nothing in a speedrun is kind of not usually what people like doing. Right. So yeah.
I have a feeling they might have kept them in because of old gen consoles, like not being able to load as fast, and so they didn't want people to be sitting on loading screens for too long or something like that. But yeah, I feel like any game that has some sort of replayability NG plus mode should probably also implement cutscene skips, but
And I was just doing a quick search.
Yeah, that's also what the challenge runners do. They use like the trainer ZMoney mentioned, or like cheat engine to actually just speed up the game for those parts where there's cutscenes, and it's really unfortunate because it also like limits the replay value, of course, if you have to sit through them all the time.
So true. And I was just doing a quick search on the game engine. It's Unreal 4, so it's not a limitation of the game engine. This is most definitely probably some sort of limitation of the way they implemented the cutscenes. So interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, needless to say, the nice thing is that we do have this game that like I said, my casual experience, I really enjoyed, and I will say, Benji, you seem to keep grinding this, so you keep.
Yeah, I don't know why
alive.
I can't stop. I don't know why I can't stop. I don't know.
Well, I noticed even after. So first of all, folks, if you do yourself a favor, this conversation has been interesting to you. Go watch Benji and zmoney's current PBs, because first of all, Benji, you go back and forth through English and German. Like I'm so shocked it's just so easy for you. But but secondly, there are times where you mention you leave some time on the table, and that's got to be. I mean, you're about a minute off, I think, from your sum of best. So that's pretty damn optimized.
I mean, there's like this huge blunder in this current PB where I failed to PBC through a certain cutscene trigger because I pressed or I held F too late, and that cost me about a minute. So yeah, I still have that, but like there's so much other difficult stuff in the run, and then losing it, or not losing it, but losing a lot of time to something like that is just really heartbreaking. And like I said, I also haven't had much time lately, so I haven't really gotten back into the grind, but I hope I can, maybe get a kind of a farewell run to the game soon that actually I'm happy with. So I don't know, we'll see. And yeah, zmoney also said there's still some time to be saved on PS5 as well, because that cutscene speed up was just like a relatively new discovery, and not a ton of runs have been completed with that yet. So yeah, there's definitely still potential, like on the execution part of the speed run, but maybe like the theory and the route and what we found is somewhat finalized now. So yeah,
definitely.
That's
my sum of best is like 51 minutes or something, so I'm definitely not. I could definitely improve my time for sure, but I think we definitely probably hit the wall on as far as how far we can go with it. But I submitted it for GDQ, but it didn't get accepted, so I might try to do the hot fix or something before the sequel comes out.
That would have been amazing if it had gotten into GDQ, but yeah.
I think also too, though, that can't be because I've seen this happen before, where if it goes on sale on Steam or on the on PlayStation Store or anything like that, you might see somebody accidentally discover something, and just in case that does happen, zmoney, where do y'all hang out? Where can people share some of this stuff? Because I think it's an important part. You never know what might happen.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the Discord server is the best place for people to reach out to and we have had some people just stumble across and say, hey, I found this, or they'll just go on the ask for help channel and say, hey, how do I do this wacky glitch that I saw on the run, So yeah, like a lot of speed games, the Discord server is probably the best way to reach out to someone and get a fast response. I mean, there are the forums on speedrun.com, but those aren't used nearly as much, I don't feel like. So
yeah, and also, as was demonstrated perfectly with the cutscene speed up glitch, like if some player just stumbles across something like that, they're gonna put it on Reddit or something. and we do watch those kind of a little bit as well, and if we find something interesting, then we all immediately post in the Discord and go like, what is this? And then we ask the person, what platform are you on? What did you do? What did you do to make this happen? And then the likes of zmoney go ahead and try to reverse engineer it and come up with app suspension stuff that actually makes it work. And yeah, it's wild. Like, maybe someone's gonna stumble across a similar thing on PC at some point and post on Reddit, and then the Discord's gonna explode again. But we'll see. We'll see.
You never know, right?
There's something that always brings me back to the game, whether it's by my own intention or someone else that stumbles across something. Something always drives me back to JFO.
Well, it's been fascinating doing a deep dive into the game, because I don't see too many speedruns like this too, where it's you avoid all the combat basically. you play the game definitely as it was not intended. I just thought so. That's why I find the speedrun so interesting and fascinating to it. Thank you both for taking so much time and chatting. This is, I know, I feel like, the game had maybe especially as the sequel has already been announced, we're thinking forward to the next one, but I'm glad we get a chance to chat about it because there's just been a bunch of, y'all have spent hundreds and thousands of hours working on this thing. And it shows. Some of the things you're able to do, just I can't even imagine my first playthrough. I never even thought would have been possible. So,
oh yeah, it's always fun when, like, for example, when it was on GDQ, it was so fun to see like the reactions of people that have only like known the game from a casual perspective, and to just see this complete abomination that the game is now during the run, and it's how we break it and then you launch across the map. It's really cool and fun. Yeah, it's a great first time viewing experience, I think, if you only know it from a casual point of view.
I'm not gonna lie, I expected there to be something interesting, like a bunch of stuff happening with boss fights, which there are in all bosses, but that's what I didn't expect to get. I got nothing like that.
Sometimes I get like some YouTube comments that be like, I went here to find a way to like cheese a boss or something, and then I found this. It was not prepared for what I expected, or I tried to find a way back from Zepho, and then I saw this and was like, what the hell is this?
It's crazy.
So yeah, it's always fun to see those kind of reactions to the speedrun.
Totally agree. So if there is a farewell or any other attempts, Benji, where can people find you? Where do you post this stuff? Where can people watch your runs if they wanted to?
Well, I stream very irregularly on Twitch, MrBenuto, and then I upload my runs to YouTube, usually like the world records, which is also MrBenuto, and that's kind of where I am. I mean, I'm on the Discord too. Yeah. If anyone ever has any questions, I'm usually one of the people to respond relatively quickly, or everyone really is. Like I said, there's a ton of great people here that are willing to help out if anyone has any questions or wants to learn the run. So yeah, that's basically where I'm hanging out.
ZMoney, do you stream it all, or do you post your PBs anywhere or anything like that?
I'm also pretty regular on my streaming, but it's pretty much the same. I'm on Twitch, zmoneytrain, and also on YouTube. I'm trying to do more YouTube stuff if I can soon, but yeah.
And I want to double down on the Discord. In my little bit of time there, I was really impressed with how friendly everybody was, and just always interested in new things and sharing and all that kind of stuff. And people who are passionate about their game. If you enjoyed this game at all and you want some replay value, you want to find a new way to do it, highly recommend. Definitely worth it. Worth the time there. So. That being said, this has been a chat all about Jedi Fallen Order. I hope you enjoy. If you haven't, play the game casually if you haven't yet. Okay, for Christ's sake, what are you doing? It's damn fun, and usually you can get it pretty cheap nowadays. So. Hope you enjoy. Thanks so much, both of you, for being here and taking the time. I really do appreciate it. Thanks, guys. This has been great.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Very fun.
Thanks, everyone, for listening and watching. If you're enjoying the podcast, please feel free, subscribe, leave a comment, all that stuff people say at the end of a video. It honestly all goes a long way to help the podcast. Thank you so much. If you want to join us on Discord, we chat mostly about food, but occasionally we do talk about the stuff that's in the podcast. The link is in the show notes or in the description. Feel free. Come on by. Join us. If you want to follow on Twitter, Sequence Break PC. Sequence Break PC. I post when I go live. It's kind of not at a set time, so if you want to see the live feed of the podcast, feel free, follow there. And finally, if you want to email, podcast@sequencebreakpodcast.com. Sequencebreakpodcast.com is also where you can find the backlog of all of the episodes. It's also on YouTube as well, so feel free, join in, have some fun. Thank you so much. I will see ya in the next one.